All right, welcome to our July 1st meeting. Before we start tonight's meeting, we'll have a prayer led by Councilman Carlos Graham, and then please join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd ask the clerk to read roll, please.
Branch,
Here.
Bray,
Here.
Carroll,
Here.
Graham,
Here.
Henry,
Here.
Hussey, Mahalovich,
Here.
Prather,
Here.
Schulte,
Here.
Scrivener.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Next on the agenda, we have number 7. This shows the minutes and reports filed here at City Hall. If you'd like to be on one of our boards or commissions, you can contact Gail Strope or go to our website, which is jeffcitymo.org. Next, we'll have council committee reports. First, Ms. Carrie Carroll and the admin committee.
Thank you. Administration Committee will meet Wednesday, July 10th. We've pushed it back 1 week because of the July 4th holiday week. On the agenda is the Sidewalk Cafe ordinance for outdoor dining and JCTV metrics and appointments review. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Carrie. Next, we'll have finance with Sean Schulte.
Thank you, Mayor. The Finance Committee met on Tuesday, June 25th. We reviewed the financial reports and lodging tax report, discussed the audit contract, and our next meeting will be July 23rd, 7:30 a.m. across the hall. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sean. Next, public safety, Mr. Prather.
Our last public safety meeting was canceled, and our next meeting will be held Thursday, August 1st, across the hall.
All right, Bob Scrivener is our Public Works and Planning Chair. Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We last met on Thursday, June 20th. We had a forward the approval of yard waste and compost contractor contract to the council for consideration. It'll be on the agenda tonight. We had vacation of an alleyway at 501 Madison for the school district. We moved to approve. We discussed the Frog Hollow right-of-way agreement with Jeff City Public Schools. We had a presentation from Capital Region Medical Center on their expansion. We discussed a contract proposal by the Brown family for a road extension of Mission Road. Accepted a CDBG grant for program year 2013, which is on the agenda tonight, and discuss parking issues at Lincoln University. And if my phone comes back up here, our next meeting is scheduled for July the 25th on Thursday at 7:30 across the hall.
All right, thank you, Bob. Moving on to liaison reports, I think Larry Henry has one for JCTV.
Thank you, Mayor. Last meeting for JCTV was June 27th, last Thursday. Main topic of discussion was the performance metrics that was previously discussed with them in the previous meeting. I think Lincoln actually has, and that staff actually has some ideas on how they want to see that proceed. So we will be discussing that more in the admin meeting coming up July 10th. So.
Okay. Anything else, Larry? Thank you.
Next meeting will be next meeting will be July 25th at 2 p.m.
All right, Bob.
Haste makes waste. I looked at the calendar wrong. Our next meeting is July the 18th. which is the week before the 25th, July 18th at 7:30 across the hall.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, no appointments, no presentations. Underneath number 12, I show that on Bill 2013-35, there's a Dan Brake, correct? If you could come forward, please. You have 5 minutes. You're here to talk about, I think, the compost contract.
Sure.
For the record, just state your name and address, if you would, please.
Dan Brake, 706 Copes Court, and I appreciate the opportunity. Just wanted to give you guys a little background. I represent Brake Brothers Tree Care and Green Waste Recycling. We've been in business over 5 years now. My brother and I started the business. In that time, we've worked very hard and managed to grow the company from 3 to approximately 20 employees. And we specialize in tree care, land clearing, mulch manufacturing, and municipal yard waste solutions. In the time we've been in business, we've worked for cities and municipalities all over the state, cities such as Sedalia, Herman, Centralia, Cape Girardeau, Berkeley, Warrensburg, Warrenton, Columbia, Jeff City Parks, Independence, and Kirksville. And most of these we worked for repeatedly. 2 years ago, we contracted with the City of Mexico to run their compost and yard waste drop-off site, and recently signed a third-year renewal. As you guys know, in March of this year, my company submitted a bid to the City of Jefferson for their yard waste drop-off and composting site. We were able to present a savings of $215,000 to the city. The recommendation has still gone to the current provider. After reviewing scoring sheets of the committee that made the recommendation, we believe there may be some confusion regarding our proposal, and specifically one of the things was towards our winter hours, and we just wanted to take a minute to address that. Our company has our proposal. We have every intent of maintaining the current winter hours that the city has been accustomed to the past 3 years. Additionally, we lost several points for experience and reliability. And this we feel is not reasonable, as we have several years of experience providing municipal services and a long list of references that would strongly disagree with our poor score. All we're asking for is that this decision be sent back to the committee to where they can more closely examine it and ensure the citizens of the city get the best value for their tax dollar. 1.6 points out of 100. That was all that separated us. We are prepared to meet or exceed the current level of service at a more favorable site for more than a 20% cost savings to the taxpayers.
Are there
Thanks
any
for-
questions by the council? Bob?
There was something that was unclear to me in regard to your winter hours. Had you proposed to do winter hours at the same bid, or would there be an
Yes.
adjustment in the?
No,
in the bid?
absolutely not. At that pricing structure that was presented.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Bray?
The winter hours, I read through that package,
Uh-huh.
but it's been like a month ago when I read through it, the whole thing. And then I also saw staff notes and so on and so forth, and I could not find your hours either. Were your hours clearly stated in there?
The summer hours were clearly stated in there, and the winter hours, by my mistake, were omitted.
Okay.
And that was an error. We were doing our best to get everything, all the pieces put together, in time, and
Yeah.
we've been watching for this contract to come up for about 3 years now.
Yeah.
And it came up, and I guess the bid packet got sent to our old address, and so someone in purchasing actually notified us, I want to say about 4 days before this was due. So thankfully she did, and made a mistake. So
All
it
right.
was my fault.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Bob?
Were you given an opportunity by staff to correct that mistake?
I received a phone call, and you'll have to forgive me here. It was sometime back in April, I believe, and I was asked about the winter hours, and I responded, yes, the winter hours would remain the same as the current provider.
Okay. Did you make it clear at that time, or at least you feel like you made it clear that that the bid wouldn't change?
I felt like I did, but after attending the meeting on the 20th, it was apparent that that was not known, not made clear. It did not appear as though the committee had that information. I'm really wishing I had that. When I had that phone call, I had presented it in an email response. So I had some documentation rather than my memory, which is sometimes failing.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ralph?
There were two things that I paid close attention to. One we talked about, and the other one was your location.
Mm-hmm.
Do I understand correctly that your proposal was contingent on some zoning changes?
We submitted 2 sites. The one that the committee found more favorable was 311 Veterans, and it is zoned M1, if I'm not mistaken. So it would require, I believe, a special use. And I'm sure several people could correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the case. I think if you have M2 zoning, there's no special use or anything required, but under M1, it is allowed with a special use.
Okay. Those were the two things that concerned me in the proposal.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Brake, thanks for being here today. We'll be taking this up later on in the meeting.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next we have the consent agenda. At this point in time, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Next, no bids over 50,000 tonight. Bills introduced. This is a time for us to have a first reading of those. Bill 2013-34.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, changing, amending, and modifying the zoning map of the zoning code of the City of Jefferson by rezoning 9.11 acres from C1 Neighborhood Commercial to PUD Planned Unit Development for land addressed as 3625 Missouri Boulevard, described as part of the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter of Section 9, Township 44 North, Range 12 West, Jefferson City, Cole County, Missouri.
And actually, while we're here, Clerk, let's go. Or did you do both? Did you do 35 also, first reading?
Didn't.
Let's just go ahead and do that.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, approving a preliminary PUD plan for property located at 3625 Missouri Boulevard, described as part of the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter of Section 9, Township 44 North, Range 12 West, Jefferson City, Cole County, Missouri.
Ms. McMillan.
Thank you, Mayor. Bill 34 is the rezoning of this property at 3625 Missouri Boulevard. You'll see on the screen a portion of the property is already zoned PUD. The proposal is to rezone the rest of that tract that has the C1 label on it to PUD. The second part of the proposal is to propose a PUD plan for this property. The entire site is 11.6 acres. The proposed use is for a car dealership and attendant uses. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this at their June meeting. And included in your packet are a number of documents and basically the entire plan. The access will be from Missouri Boulevard, as shown on the screen. There will be a secondary access off of Hobbs Road in this vicinity. You may recall that 2 other development plans had been proposed in the past, both of which did not come to fruition. In 2005, there was a plan for a mixed-use development consisting of 17,000 square feet of retail space, 34,000 square feet of office space, a drive-through bank, and 88 condos. That was abandoned. In 2008, a proposal for a Holiday Inn hotel was proposed for that site, and that never did come to fruition either. This plan for the automotive dealership is the current plan that's being proposed. The building that's proposed is about 36,000 square feet. They also propose, and it's located back on the southern portion of the lot. Also proposes a detail shop for the use of the dealership only. This shows a little bit better exhibit for the landscaping buffer that's proposed. A substantial buffer yard is proposed along the eastern and southern property lines. The existing trees are planned to remain in place as much as possible in the area that is not being graded. And in addition, a buffer yard of evergreen trees that will be stagger planted along the southern property line and along the eastern property line as well. A traffic impact study was submitted, was actually performed for the original two developments, the mixed-use development, and was updated for the hotel development. In a letter from Missouri Department of Transportation, they indicated that all the traffic and transportation improvements that are required have been installed. And you may recall that there were some pretty significant improvements made along Missouri Boulevard in the recent past. So no other improvements are needed. However, during the public hearing, some of the neighbors were concerned about being able to enter from Hobbs Road out onto Missouri Boulevard. And Missouri Department of Transportation does recognize that there is a traffic flow problem on Missouri Boulevard. They have said that they're going to study those, the traffic lights on Truman and Missouri Boulevard to improve the traffic flow, and on Country Club Drive as well. Also included in the plan and the detail are the signage plan, the lighting plan. Lighting was another area of concern. Parking lot lighting is proposed as full cutoff lighting. Basically, that means that the covers over the lights restrain the light from going out too far. They basically shoot the light downward onto the subject. The average illumination levels is proposed at 3-foot candles, which is fairly low. The parking and display lot lighting is going to be turned off after 11 p.m. They will continue to have some security lighting. This is an exhibit of the elevation of the building. Of course, it's all designed to the franchise requirements. And this is another view of the site with the uses on the air photo adjacent to it. I'd like to point out most of these, the display of the automobiles are going to be along the front of the property. This is another elevation showing the relationship of the site to the buffer yards. And there are some more detailed description of what those buffer yards look like at each portion on the site. The public hearing for both the rezoning and the PUD plan is scheduled for the next council meeting, which is Monday, July 15th at 6 p.m. in this chamber. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions by council members? Carlos?
Janice, I do have one question as it relates to the entrance that's going on to Hobbs or coming from Hobbs
Yes.
into the dealership. Is that a required entrance, or because I'm concerned about the congestion of traffic that's going to be coming into there as well?
It's proposed as a secondary, primarily as as an exit. The primary entrance will be from Missouri Boulevard. And it's pretty clear that that's how the site will function, primarily with this entrance from Missouri Boulevard.
Is that entrance wide enough for trucks? Because I'm concerned about trucks being able to,
Yes,
with all those cars, being able to
Yes.
come into Hobbs and turn to the dealership.
yes, it will accommodate trucks. Specifically designed to accommodate trucks.
Mr. Brick.
Janice, how long has that been zoned as C1? Or do you have any idea how long that's been? That's all been out there for quite a while.
Yes, I'd have to look back at see if the history shows. I know there was some, back when the hotel was proposed, there was a zoning of the site at that time to C1. I believe that's how, when that occurred.
Can you give me some examples of what would qualify as C1? What kind of range, what can you put in there for C1?
Under C1, banks, retail uses, fast food restaurants, basically a full range of retail type uses. An automobile dealership is one of the things that is not allowed in C1, and that was the reason that the property owner and this applicant came forward with this PUD plan for the automotive dealership specifically as a PUD, because that would limit the use to strictly this use. The neighbors would be informed of what that use would be and would see the plan for that use. So if anything else would be proposed, it would have to start at the beginning and go back through the Planning and Zoning Commission and come back to the council. And so
All right.
that's what this plan is specifically for the automobile dealership.
Okay, thank you.
Janice, how did this come through planning and zoning? How did it?
With the vote?
Yes.
At the planning and zoning meeting, we did receive some correspondence. No one spoke in opposition at the meeting. We did receive some correspondence from some property owners. And we did have a neighborhood meeting on June 4th that allowed the neighborhood an opportunity to view the plans and ask questions in advance of the planning and zoning meeting. So anyway, in the end, the vote was unanimous to approve this plan.
Bob.
Janice, I'm really not too concerned about traffic because I think we've got, 3 or 4 other dealerships on the boulevard, and I've been in and out a few of them, and I've driven by them a number of times, and I've really never ever seen a situation where there was more than 1 or 2 cars coming and going at a time. But I am concerned about noise and lighting, and so I guess I'd be interested in the width of the buffer. I don't think you mentioned how substantial is the buffer that we're talking about.
It's a little difficult to tell from this particular plan. If I find the cross section. That one. If you look at your cross sections in your plan, I don't know, I have to look at my document here to see if I can review the width. On this side. Okay. It's 87 feet from this corner to the property line. And as I mentioned, as much of the natural tree area is going to remain as possible, but they are going to also install a staggered planting buffer along the property line as well. And of course, it does neck down to a little closer to the adjoining property line on the east side. But it is 30 feet in this vicinity.
Do you know if there will be doors, like garage doors or anything like that on the back of the building?
There
or-
are no doors on the back of this building.
So there's very, very unlikely that there would be any noise of auto repair noise or anything like that coming from the mechanics?
No, I would say that the architect took very great care to design the building so that it would be create a quiet environment.
And the parking spaces along the back, do you know, are they intended to be active parking spaces where people are going to be coming and going from them, or would you expect that would be surplus automobiles, maybe cars waiting to be detailed or something like that?
Probably a little bit of a mix. I'm not sure if they would require their employees to park back here, so there may be a little bit of coming and going of employees. You know, but the
Actually,
car-
Janice, one of the developers did tell me that the employees were going to be parking on the back.
So, you know, there will be a little bit of a coming and going from that area, but a car dealer doesn't stay open.
But they're
That way.
very unlikely that there would be new cars parked back there,
It's-
even for security. That probably
No,
wouldn't be a good idea.
Right.
but-
It's my understanding that the new cars are going to be displayed up at the front part of the lot. There may be some new cars along the driveway here, but that would be the extent of the display.
And do you know, has there been any provision to ensure that there are no paging loudspeakers on the backside of the building?
Yeah.
That would be important, I think, as well.
Yes, that was another topic of discussion, because the neighbors were also concerned about the noise from loudspeakers. And again, they are going to have some speakers, but they're all going to be at the front of the building.
And
so
probably
they're
projecting the sound
oriented out toward the front.
Okay.
Right.
All right, well, those were my main concerns, with the lighting and do you have any idea how tall the trees that are there now are? Would they actually, the existing trees that are able to be left, would they be mature enough that they would block the most of the view of the building, or the lighting, ambient light from the building?
In this exhibit, it's a little difficult to see, but you can see the elevation of the building compared to the buffer. Of course, it shows full-grown trees in that vicinity. But the residential units are lower, and you know, the site slopes up from where the condos are up to the site where the dealership.
So
will
there's
be
somewhat
built.
of a natural berm there in
Yeah.
addition to the trees and so
Right.
forth. Okay, all right, thank you.
And of course, the trees hopefully will grow, but, you know, I think it shows in the plan that they'll be 6 to 8 feet in height, I think, when they're planted.
Oh, I'm sorry, Carlos, go ahead.
Janice, you know if there's going to be required for blasting for this project?
I am not aware of that. The fire department does issue permits for blasting. I don't know if they've been, I'm sure they haven't been contacted, but,
Mr.
if
Porter?
they're-
I would have expected some type of a pre-blast plan by now if that was going to have occurred, so nothing to that has come across our.
Okay, any follow-up, Carlos? Carrie?
Thank you. And I wanted to thank city staff for working so closely with the neighbors. And the neighbors have had several meetings, even before it ever came to planning and zoning. The developer's been very cooperative and open, and the communication has just been wonderful between everybody involved. And traffic was a huge concern, traffic lights and noise, like you brought up. And I know water drainage is something that also was brought to our attention with all the way this land slopes towards the neighborhood in the back. But it seems like we've really addressed that, and it's evident from no negative comments at planning and zoning and having the neighbors there, and there was some correspondence, but the concerns have been able to be addressed, and things have been very smooth, and we don't typically see that in high-profile zoning areas such as this. So I have to credit the neighbors for really communicating, and the developer and the city staff for all working together very hard on this. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for staff? Bob?
I would say this, I spoke to representative of the Highway Department, or MoDOT, the other day, and I was talking specifically about the traffic concerns. And there are traffic problems on Missouri Boulevard, but they had no concern at all about this development actually creating additional traffic problems, partially because of the time when most people frequent car lots and when they start their day and so on and so forth. So they did say that there are issues that have to be addressed, and they are doing traffic studies and what have you, but there wasn't any concern on their part about this development increasing that problem to any measurable amount. So.
Okay, any other questions by council? Okay, seeing none, we'll have first reading of 2013-36. Janice, thanks for that
Thank you.
presentation.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with All Seasons Landscaping and Construction Incorporated for the operation of a public compost site.
Janice.
Thank you, Mayor. The current contract for the public yard waste and compost site expires in October 31st exactly. Proposals were recently solicited to operate a site for the next contract period beginning November 1st. Proposals were requested on various options, and the selection committee recommended option 2, which is outlined in your packet. Option 2 was defined, could be described as the option that mirrors the requirements that are in place today. And basically, that would mean there would be no charge to city residential users or to city licensed lawn care businesses, but non-city residents and other businesses would be charged. Responses were received from 2 proposers, Brake Brothers Tree Care and Green Waste Recycling from Columbia, Missouri, and All Seasons Landscaping and Construction of Lowman, Missouri. The committee appointed to review the proposers recommended All Seasons Landscaping and Construction as the contractor, and their site at 2417 South Ridge Drive, and also recommended option 2. All Seasons scored highly on the proposed method of performance, equivalent to the current level of service, city's role in the operation, experience, and reliability. The contract would run concurrent with the city's fiscal year and is structured as a 1-year initial contract with 4 additional 1-year renewals for a total of 5 years. And the year 1 cost for fiscal year 2014 with service beginning November 1 would be $236,000.
Okay, questions by council? Bob?
Janice, I have several questions, and Mr. Mayor, would it be all right if I just ask I have like 6 or 7 questions.
Sure.
If it's okay. I guess the first one's kind of just a get out of the way question here. We had a 3-year contract before. Why did we go to 5-year?
The contractors have to make substantial investments in the site, and once established, it's really an inconvenience to the public also to relocate. So it was a feeling of the staff that the contract period should be longer.
Okay, and that was part of the original proposal, request for proposal for
Yes.
5 years. Okay. And on the option 2 selection, you said I think you said it was equivalent to the current service.
Yes.
Does the current service have licensed landscaping businesses dumping free now?
If they are licensed as a home occupation, yes.
As a home occupation. So will that
Yes.
increase the number of people that will have the ability to dump?
Potentially.
And the reason I ask that is because I noticed that, I think it was option 1, didn't include businesses dumping. And
Right.
I noticed that it was the same bid for Brake Brothers for option 1 and 2, but there was about a $24,000 difference, I think it was. I think instead of 236, it was 212. And was there any discussion about whether that 212,000 bid might have been better than the 224 for all seasons?
We did briefly discuss it. I believe one of the goals is to encourage the disposal of yard waste at this facility and not have it wind up in creeks, in storm drains, in ditches, and other locations where we don't want it deposited. So the idea is to encourage the use of this facility by basically all residential users and the lawn care companies as well, because they're basically servicing the yards in Jefferson City.
So how can you be sure if you are allowing licensed landscaping businesses, because they can be licensed in Jefferson City, but doing yard work outside the city? How can you be sure that the city and thus the taxpayers aren't paying for people's lawn service outside the city?
Yeah, I understand that concern. And there could be some requirement for the contractor to require some identification. Of course, it's an easy thing to say what you want done, but actually implementing it and implementing a program to accomplish what you want, it can be a little problematic, but I'm sure there's a way to do that. Right now, there is a little bit of a glitch, I would say, in the system, because you also want property owners, not just residents, to be able to use the facility. You know, owners of property or yard waste generated from property inside the city should legally be able to be deposited at this location. So we want that to happen, but to ensure that only yard waste from the city gets deposited there, you know, it takes a little bit of policing by the contractor.
Okay, and we'll probably talk about that more later, but there was a question raised tonight during Mr. Brake's presentation, and I'd already had this question written down, but would you explain the scoring and how you arrived at the various scores? Maybe I listed the same ones that you listed, the proposed method of performance. Would you explain what that means exactly? The city's role in operation, what operation or role that the city would have in the operation, and why that's important, and then the experience, how you judged one company's experience versus the other, and then the issue of reliability. If you could maybe explain to us how you scored that and how you arrived at your scoring.
Well, there were 5 people on the committee. I can describe how I voted.
I mean, yes, okay.
Okay. The proposed method of performance, we want to ensure that the contractor has the ability to perform the service required, and that you know, hopefully the service would be fairly seamless in that regard. I personally thought that proposed method of performance because the winter hours were not mentioned, and I feel that winter hours are important. But I personally scored Brake Brothers with fewer points for that particular item because they did not indicate winter hours in the proposal.
Okay.
On the location of the site, one of the sites proposed by Brake Brothers on Veterans Lane seems to be a reasonable site, I would think. You want a site that's fairly centrally located. That's sometimes hard to find, a site that's fairly centrally located. And the advantage that we currently have on the current one on South Ridge Drive, it's fairly centrally located. And Brake Brothers also had proposed a site that was fairly
Now, for those at home that don't know where that is, can you kind of give a little bit of a idea of where that's located?
It's
Veterans Lane?
basically in the same quadrant as, here's the map that shows that. Trying to get this down here. Here's Ellis Boulevard and Christie Drive. So it's fairly easy to get to. This is the current site on South Ridge Drive. The Brake Brothers site proposed one on Veterans Lane, so it's fairly close to the current site, just over on the other side of the highway, across Highway 54.
And that's mostly surrounded by commercial property, is that correct?
It is.
Okay.
So there's advantages to either one of those sites. The other site that Brake Brothers proposed was up off of 179. Several staff members thought that this particular site was too close to residential uses and did not particularly favor that site. But neither one of the Brake Brothers sites are currently under their control. They would, I assume they would be leased from the current property owner.
Okay.
And that's why I particularly did not award the full number of points on the other one, the city's role in operation. I personally scored All Seasons higher in that regard. They own this, All Seasons owns this particular site. To move over to another site would require some action by the city through zoning approvals and then also notification of residents and users of the site that would be moving the facility. So that does take a little bit of effort to educate people if you're going to move that facility. So that's why I gave that the Brake Brothers proposal fewer points on that one. And experience and reliability. I agree, Brake Brothers does have some very good experience, and I'm not really familiar with their reliability. We did call the City of Mexico and talk to them about their experience, and they gave a fair evaluation of their experience. Our experience with All Seasons has been very good. If you know any operation like this, you are going to get some complaints. So All Seasons has been very quick to rectify any complaints that have been forthcoming, and we feel that overall our experience has been very good with All Seasons, and their reliability has been excellent. They're open when they say they're going to be open. They have the staff available to service the people that are coming in.
But you didn't receive any feedback that would indicate that Brake Brothers' experience and reliability was necessarily less. You just didn't really get anything that strongly indicated that it. What kind of feedback did you get?
It appeared from the proposal that most of their experience was relatively short-term operations with the cities, that they come in, operate a facility for a while to dispose of yard waste or vegetation, and then there's more short-term contracts.
So rather than operate a fixed site, they come in and dispose of what the city has accumulated and then come back when they've accumulated more.
Correct.
Or something of that nature?
Yes, that's my understanding. Now, with Mexico, the city of Mexico, they are operating their public compost facility for them at the current time.
Okay.